Hello everybody, my name is Star Wars Boy, how are you? And welcome back to a brand new Star Wars Battlefront 2 video. It has been a while, however, we are going to be continuing our hero guide, starting off with a hero guide for Boba Fett. Now, before I start a video, I probably should say what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks. After I uploaded my video on how to get kill streaks, there was a 1 week break and I actually uploaded kill streaks, which I don't usually do, and then 1xe a week later. Basically, I was pretty busy IRL and I didn't have time to put together an upload, and I was also busy making hero guides. So those yellow squares that you see on your screen during the gameplay, I was busy doing that for every single hero and reinforcement in the game. With school coming up soon, I knew I wouldn't have enough time to do it during then, so I decided to do it now before it starts. However, hero guides will go up as normal as I only have to do the audio now. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, moving on to Boba Fett's base stats, he has a base health of 600, which is equal to the BB units, so it's obviously not that good. His health regain is 150, which is one of the worst in the game, to be completely honest. His weapon is his EE3 burst rifle, which does some pretty good damage. It does 75 to 105 to the body and 140 to 199 to the head. So getting headshots with this thing is massive. Its DPS is 210 to 150, and his rate of fire goes from 120 BPM to 360 rounds per minute. The drop-off damage is 20 to 40 meters, which is decent for his blaster. Now, moving on to his abilities, his first ability is called Concussion Rocket and has a 15-second cooldown. Boba Fett fires a concussion missile shot, which dazes his enemies and does not allow lightsaber characters to follow their attacks. Now, as for the pros, it does blind enemies for 5 seconds and disable those blasters as well. As for blinding enemies, it honestly works really well in the dark, however, it's not so good in bright maps. Disabling blasters is another good thing. If you're taking heavy fire, you can easily shoot them with this and you can get away. As for the cons, it does have a short duration. 5 seconds is not that much when you consider how long it really takes, and it does no damage. If this missile did also a bit of damage, maybe 100 damage, I think it would be a much better ability. His next ability is called Rocket Barrage and it has a 20-second cooldown. A hail of small rockets is launched from Boba Fett's gauntlet, and the damage is 75 per rocket, which is quite good. As for the pros, it does a lot of damage. This is by far his best ability damage-wise, and it really helps when fighting off large crowds and saber characters. As for the cons, it only has 5 rockets and no good star card upgrades. Back in the day, Boba Fett had amazing start card upgrades for this ability, including dealing more damage and adding more rockets to a total of 8, I believe, so this ability was amazing. However, I believe the only start card for this ability, and I may be wrong, is the fact that it does a bit more damage in the radius, so it's definitely not as good as it was before. However, this ability is amazing in large crowds of enemies. Now, his middle ability is called For the Hunt and has a 10-second cooldown. Enemies around Boba Fett are revealed for a short period of time to his whole team, during which Boba Fett disappears from enemy radars and can utilize unlimited jetpack fuel. Now, the duration is 8 seconds, however, this ability is pretty amazing. As for the pros, it reveals enemies on your scanners, infinite fuel, and has a fast cooldown. 10 seconds for this ability is great. Another thing that I just realized was that it actually reveals enemies to your teammates and reveals yourself from the minimap, which is great. Whenever Boba Fett is off the minimap, he's really deadly as he's one of the easier characters to flank with. As for cons, I can really say none. The fact that this ability also gives you infinite fuel really makes it stand out, and it's definitely his best ability. Now, moving on to Boba Fett's star cards, and honestly, choosing 3 cards was pretty hard, let alone another one for Heroes vs Villains. However, we are going to be going over what I think are the 3 best cards for Boba Fett. The first one is called Extended Exposure, and For the Hunt reveals enemies for a longer duration. Now, obviously, this card is amazing because revealing enemies is really helpful with Boba Fett. Knowing where literally everyone is a great thing to know with Boba Fett and pretty much any character. Now, the duration of this ability goes from 10 seconds to 6 seconds with a maxed out star card. Next star card I recommend is Quick Refill. Boba Fett's jetpack refuels faster when not being used. Now, the reason I suggest this card is because obviously you're not going to be flying the whole time. Boba Fett's jetpack fuel is pretty bad compared to the First Order Jet Trooper. So you will be on the ground for a short amount of time, and refueling faster is better even though it's a short percentage. Now it goes from 8% faster to 15% faster with a maxed out star card. Now, the final card I recommend using is his Born to Fly card, and at first I really did not like this card. The main reason I didn't like this card was because his health regeneration starts 1.5 seconds later, but at the cost that his ability cooldowns are faster while in the air. However, after using this card, I actually really like it in both Hero and Trooper game modes. Now, with a maxed out star card, it goes from 5% to a 20% increase and faster cooldowns. And the reason I use this is because it will have much faster cooldowns for both his Rocket Barrage and For the Hunt. And since his For the Hunt is infinite jetpack fuel, that basically means you're going to be flying a whole lot more. Now, moving on to his maps, these are 3 maps that I feel like Boba Fett does pretty good on. The first one is Naboo. Boba Fett pretty much dominates on the first phase of Naboo, and the second phase he'll do pretty well in as well. Kashyyyk is another map that Boba Fett does extremely well on. His Rocket Barrage and For the Hunt combo are amazing on this map, as there's cover but not as much cover as other Walker Assault maps. The final map I recommend is Tatooine, as this map is just made for Boba Fett. It's Tatooine, of course. He just does really well on this map, I feel like, and his jetpack can be used so well on this map. There are a lot of hiding places for enemies, however, his Rocket Barrage and For the Hunt does solve this problem. Now, moving on to some tips and tricks for Boba Fett. The first one being that you need to practice with Boba Fett. Now, with most lightsaber characters, there are tips and tricks for them, but they're generally much easier to use than blaster characters. In fact, I only really had 1 clip of gameplay because I kept on dying in co-op as Boba Fett, so he's definitely challenging to use. The number one thing I'd recommend is going into an arcade game and actually setting the AI health to double and just practicing flying and shooting at the same time. Now, the reason I do this is because Boba Fett obviously has a jetpack, and being able to hit your shots, even headshots while flying, is really important. Anyone can hit their shots while on the ground as Boba Fett, but however, having no ADS really means you have to practice hip firing and flying. Now, if you're playing on console, this is a much harder thing to do than on PC. However, with a lot of practice, you can get it done. Now, the next tip kind of revolves around the first tip, but it's to always hit those headshots. In this stats earlier, his headshot damage is pretty much 200, which can basically one burst any class in the game, which is pretty insane. So you want to be hitting those headshots all the time. Now, obviously, this is, again, a lot more easier said than done. I mean, it's pretty easy, again, to hit your shots while on the ground, but flying is another thing that you have to do. So try getting those headshots. Now, the final tip for Boba Fett is to not hold down his jetpack and just manage his fuel properly. Now, many people when using Boba Fett, they all just hold down the jetpack and then they will wonder why the fuel runs out so quickly. Now, believe me, Boba Fett's jetpack fuel does suck. However, there is a way to manage it. Not only can you equip these jetpack star cards, but you can also just tap the trigger instead of holding it down. Now, tapping the trigger does have the same distance. The only effect it has is holding down the trigger actually makes you gain height faster. But other than that, I would honestly recommend tapping the trigger at all times. You'll know you're doing this right if you look at his jetpack and you see the flames kind of stuttering. That means you are doing this right. So that is going to be it for this hero guide, guys. I had a very hard time trying to get gameplay for this video as I suck hard with Boba Fett. And after this hero guide, I actually did get a bit better with him, and hopefully with a lot of practice, everyone can. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. See you guys next time. Bye, and may the force be with you always.